No, I like phones, but I'm a friend with camera.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with that.
So we're doing a general assembly here soon. We're right next to the property that was taken yesterday. And if you want to see those video archives, they are on my Ustream channel, Occupy CH. My name is Becca, and you can follow me on Twitter and Occupy CHC. Nobody really knows what this meeting is going to be about, but there is lots of press and lots of local newspapers here. And there is a police car, canine unit, stationed right over there in that driveway, probably making sure that we don't go inside the building. It is very cold out here, so if my camera is shaky, I apologize.
Starting our General Assembly momentarily. For the sake of keeping our information comfortable within our group, we're going to have Maria speak so the press can get some sound bites of what they want to hear, and then we're going to ask that they leave, I guess. Gather around.
Actually, let's do this like in front of this tree and let them start their thing. Okay. Okay. Oh my goodness. At least no one died. Okay.
You state your name.
Maria Rowan, M-A-R-I-A-R-O-W-A-N.
So to start by telling us about what you thought of the mayor's and the police force's behavior during yesterday's event.
I think the laws and policies that have allowed this piece of land to be taken out of community control and turned over to corporate control are the problems within themselves. And I think it's unfortunate for the mayor and the police that they're in a position where they feel like they have to support that.
Tell me about what you guys are planning here today.
We're actually having an open General Assembly meeting so that people can come together and talk about what has happened with the corporate control of the space, with it moving out of community control, express their dissent, express their desires, and their vision. That's been the whole purpose of this.
What's the next step? Are people moving on now?
Well, people are moving on constantly. There's not a next step planned that I know of, and part of this General Assembly is talking about next steps.
What are the possible next steps?
The town could get behind an occupation of this space. CVS could recognize that they shouldn't be ruling the community, and they could step back and sell the land to someone for a penny. Anything could happen.
Why in particular this one building and CVS? I mean, you could go to any building out here. There's a Wendy's over there. There's a lot of chains.
Well, this building has actually been mostly empty on and off for a number of years. Weaver Street Market owned it. For financial reasons, they felt compelled to sell it. While Weaver Street Market owned it, community visioning sessions took place with hundreds of people to talk about what could cooperatively be done with the space. So the community is already invested in the space.
Now, did you feel that yesterday's event was any more or less successful than the event that took place in the Yates building?
Well, we don't have a collective community center in either building, so I'm not sure that we could say either event was particularly successful. Not for what we really want, which is collective community participation and control of our community and our lives.
What's been the reaction since what happened last night?
There's been a large variety of reactions over the internet since this happened last night. There are a lot of questions in the community. There are You know, you're just going to have to go read the internet. I'm not sure I can answer that question.
What's your reaction?
What's my reaction? My reaction continues to be intense disappointment that as communities we face these unjust laws and these ordinances that are preventing us connecting and coming together and doing what we need to do to support each other. We can collectively care for our children. We can collectively educate our children. We can collectively provide health care to one another. And there are petty ordinances and larger laws that are keeping that in the hands of private interests.
Well, what's wrong with the community center right over there?
Even in it, it's really like one big dance hall. It's not actually that much of a community center. What was being envisioned for this space, or has been envisioned for this space, is community gardens, for instance, which you couldn't do over there. Also, this was envisioned as a more collective space where the town government would have nothing to do with it. It's not about renting out rooms to whoever can afford to do contra dancing that night. Not that I have a problem with contra dancing. It's really about people having the autonomy to come together and give aid to one another. You know, there's a lot of people in this community who can't afford to rent out a room anymore. I have friends who have master's degrees who have been out of work for years now, even though they have children. I have friends who can barely pay their rent. I have friends who don't eat except on the nights that their children are at home with them. Those people need a place too, and we could build all that together given the opportunity, taking the opportunity.
Is another issue with this particular building and the CVS, am I right that there's a CVS close by here and that's also part of the concern?
I think any two-story paved building in this space owned by a corporation, regardless of whether they have another store in the area, is not what the community envisioned for this space. There are no CVS signs all over this town, but if another corporation was trying to put a three-story paved building here instead of the community center and things that have been envisioned for this space, you would see no signs about that. Because the community already decided how they wanted this space used years ago.
You started to talk about the feedback that's on the internet. Obviously, there's a lot of positive feedback. There's a lot of people here today. There's also been some negative feedback, and I wondered if I could get your response to the people who are watching this saying, how in the world are they able to spray paint no CVS on a building that is owned by somebody else?
That was there.
I don't know. I actually don't.
Or go into a building like that last night, just if you could, because people are going to say that. So how would you respond?
And how I'm going to respond is the same way I responded when I was speaking one-on-one with the mayor yesterday, which is the laws are unjust, and you reach a point when the laws are unjust and people are suffering, where the value of people is above the law, and the value of people is above profit.
But some would say that it's unjust to go to someone else's property, spray paint, go inside, occupy the place.
I haven't spray painted anything, and I just said what I thought about the laws.
Why not change the law?
I honestly think that we don't have time anymore. Our environment is threatened. We have people out of work. We have families that are scraping by for food. I don't think we have time to change every little law that prevents someone from having a clothing line in their development.
It's also expensive.
And it's also expensive.
To get a legislator to change a law.
Some of the members yesterday identified as anarchists, and police kind of feel a little intimidated by that.
Police have guns and they feel intimidated because people use the word anarchist? I think intimidated is a really weird word in that sentence.
Do you think most of these people would rather see police not in this community?
I would rather see police not in this community, and I'm not a self-identified anarchist. I have always had problems from a very early age with the idea of asking people to carry guns in my name.
Do you think it was appropriate the way protesters insulted police? One said he wishes police would die. Is that appropriate?
Oh God, that's when my Buddhism kicks in. I personally wouldn't say that to anyone, but I understand the rage and the sense of injustice that causes people to say that.
Was there anything else you wanted to add we didn't ask?
Think of anything?
Were you guys planning a open forum up here, or?
It's a General Assembly meeting, and in general, we feel like people feel more comfortable speaking freely when they aren't being filmed. Not everyone like me can deal with this. It's a lot. Talk about intimidating. Yeah.
But isn't that what happens when you're out in public in a public space? Sidewalk?
It is a public space, and I can't stop you from filming, but, you know, it was considered, like, nice to give y'all the chance to talk to someone one-on-one, and if you would be willing to give people the chance to have the space to them, you know, to be open, that would be nice, too. I mean, just because, so, yeah.
Can I see yours? Remember somebody that lives down the street? Or I can. Hi,
how are you guys?
So, I live right next door, and this is not the first, CVS meeting. The town has had meetings for over a year, and the frustrating part for me as a community member is I have not seen a lot of these people there at those meetings. I've been following this issue for a year. There's a process, there's a zoning law that has to be changed in order for a CVS to go here. So it's not a foregone conclusion that CVS can go here. The mayor and the alderman will vote on that in the spring. So that's the process that it goes through. I just want to say that people around here have been working on this issue for a long time. And there's no foregone conclusion that this is a CVS at all.
What do you think about the effort out here from any of these people? What they're doing?
It's a little frustrating because I feel like a lot of their information is
So we're going to, as soon as we kind of get the press thing out of the way, we're going to have
the information in the pamphlet says that it's inevitable that CVS will go here. There's a process where we actually have been participating for over a year. People that live around here. So it's a little frustrating to me that we weren't talking about what's going to go on here before somebody decided to go to the building. And I guess for me personally, seeing in the public eye that we're going to be affiliated with this group when we weren't asked to be affiliated, we're just going to be lumped in with that. So we're just a group of citizens that live around the corner, and that's our major issue is what is going to happen.
Is it the misinformation you say this group has, or is it the process that they follow?
It's mostly the misinformation, and it's this particular site. If they want to occupy other buildings, I don't know the information about those, so it's not. I can't speak with authority about what's gone on in those places. So.
Is there concern from neighbors about this becoming a CVS?
Yeah, because as you can see, it's a very busy corner, and if you put a 24-hour CVS right next to a residential building, it's not zoned for that. And so the CVS is requesting a zoning change, and that's going through the process right now. And so many of the neighbors have expressed concerns about living right next to it.
Well, it sounds like in the end, you, the neighbors, and this group may have the same goal, but you're approaching it from different means?
Yeah, we've been approaching it through the normal means where you go to the mayor, you go to the alderman, talk to them, figure out, you go to the town, you talk to the town planning board, you can figure out what's the process that CVS has to go through, and what are the steps they have to go through, and what are the zoning laws. And it's very boring, it's not as exciting as taking over a building, but that's the way it works in Carrboro. And that's
with that in mind, then, would you say, reading between the lines, that what happened here last night hurt your efforts?
I wouldn't say it hurt our efforts. I just wanted to have a say to let people know that not all the neighbors, were occupying the building. You're going through the normal channel.
So you get your name and spell.
That's Jeff Harris. Herrick.
Jeff J. E. And you live here twice.
Yeah, I live right.
So, and then the other. The graffiti got put on the back of the car. It's got nothing to do with us. It's an art. We'll clean it off. No, don't tell them that. You're just, when you clean up the
Hey.
graffiti in town. If you would like to
Good, how are you?
autonomous meeting, you're welcome, but don't volunteer my services. I didn't put it there, and I paid taxes for apologizing to them. Oh my God. You didn't even tell what it said, and even if you couldn't. So who knows? It's been there for years for all we know.
So the press is almost finished, and we've asked them to leave. They are, of course, able to stay if they really want to, but we've asked them to leave, and we gave them our statements. So, how is the audio now? I know it was hard because we were right next to the street, so, and they all have microphones. I don't have microphones, so,
like literally, come to this sewer camp, and the guy goes to the address, and they're like down here. And the pizza guy's like ringing the doorbell, that's the address they give him. But they're actually at the sewer thing right now. They're like, and he's like, what? And he's like, pizza down here. And he's like, okay. And then like the turtle pushes up the thing, and they give the pizza. If you can do that, why can't you deliver pizza? This is a real building. Yeah, it's not a sewer.
Thank you. I love that analogy.
It's true. In the first Ninja Turtles movie, the pizza guy delivers pizza.
I should have used that analogy yesterday when I was screaming at them like a baby.
I don't know.
I watched that back. I was like, I sound like such a whiny little bitch. It's like whining over my pizza. I hadn't eaten all day though, so I was pretty hungry.
All right, let's get this off. We're all here.
You're watching Occupy Chapel Hill Ustream. We're in Carrboro right now. My name is Becca. You can follow me on Twitter at OccupyCHC.
I was just here constantly for 2 years, yeah.
Can we form like a circle where we can all see each other? Maybe?
So, Alana, if you want to just announce that I'm Ustreaming, if they don't want to be filmed, then, you know, that whole thing. Then just stay behind.
This is private property. You're trespassing. Good.
Alright, okay. We're not.
Don't make us call the police. We're already here.
If you can't see everyone in the circle, you're not in the circle. Yes, Mother. So, Becca's going to be Ustreaming this General Assembly. If you don't want to be filmed before you speak, just say so, and she can either mute the camera or turn it off.
We are still being filmed, by the way.
Yes?
They don't have to.
It is public.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's private property.
They're on the circle.
You can do it to
Oh, look at David. Look at
Freedom of press is fun. Freedom isn't free. Go away. All right, focus everybody. Let's get distracted.
Do we have somebody that would like to take minutes of this meeting? Somebody with pen and paper? Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Owen.
Zero for participation.
Do we have somebody that would like to be on set that can take order of people that would like to talk? Great, thank you. So I'm going to wait till we have some pen and paper ready so we can make an agenda. I have my I ask, you don't have to, but before you speak, if you could say your name or whatever you'd like to be called, just because I like to have community, and I like to know people's names. So let's go ahead and set an agenda. If you have something that you would like to discuss today, raise your hand.
I'm Brian, and
Thank
I
you.
have two things I'd like to discuss. One, I'd like us to about how he felt about what happened yesterday. Broad. And two, there's a community-wide meeting on Wednesday at which the developer who wants to turn this space into a corporate outlet is going to answer questions. And I'd like to see us discuss that. Maybe we could discuss other things about the future. Those are 2 items.
Great.
Can I make a process point?
Sure.
Just that I'm not sure that everyone knows the details of what happened yesterday, so maybe at the beginning of that part of the agenda, someone could just give a brief narrative about the events that took place, and also clarify that this is a General Assembly about that. It is not like our regular, it's not any sort of established General Assembly part of, yeah.
I have in the past missed a whole lot of these events due to lack of communication between all concerned parties. I would like to propose a public forum that we can all get together on, and no matter what group we're in, despite the danger, it would be a good community building activity that we all participate in.
Anything else to the agenda? Hearing none, seeing none. All right, we're going to start the process. So I think that the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the events that transpired yesterday. Do I have somebody that would like to give a recount of what happened yesterday? What? What'd you say?
Let's get a reporter to tell us.
I ordered a pizza.
Point of order, it's 2 pieces.
It was 2 pizzas. Okay.
I would be willing to take a shot at it. I wasn't here for a lot of it, but I'll start. Not to talk too much. I'll probably talk a lot today. I feel loquacious. Yesterday, I was at the really, really free market in which I participated for 7.5 years. Really nice community-wide anti-capitalist events. Afterwards, after packing up, I came back here on my way back to my house. It looked like about 40 people had entered the CVS building and were transforming the inside of it. There were banners, people were making furniture. Across the street there was a nomadic occupation with tents. This went on for a while. People occupying the building had brought a generator. Police snatched the generator, stole it, and...
I'm going to pause you for a second.
Yeah,
That's the
please.
point of information.
Great, hit it.
There's one thing that 40 people, I don't think 40 people entered the building, but there were 40, 60 people sitting at least in front in the building.
We have another point of information.
I would just like to ask that we not call this the CVS building, we call it the Here Abandoned Building.
This here abandoned building.
Pick up or should I continue?
Continue, I'm sure people will add on more.
Most of the Carrboro Board of Aldermen was across the street. Dan Coleman came in, went out. The mayor came in and was sitting in the building for a while on Facebook, trying to set up some kind of, like a PR stunt for himself. This my,
Interpretation.
of events.
Everything you say is.
And then the police, who had already snatched some of the belongings of the people who were in the building, came, threatened people as far as I understood it. People left the building. There was some kind of a discussion in front of the building about the mayor thinking it was cool to force the people out of the building with the police, and other people not thinking that was cool. And eventually people slowed away. There weren't any arrests. As far as I know, the generator is the only item that was stolen.
No, we got the pizza back.
Okay, a pizza delivery person was prevented from entering.
He was intercepted.
Even though everybody else was able to come in and out, and the media were, and even Carrboro politicians, but not a pizza delivery person. You're outraged.
Yes!
What's your name?
Neil. Sorry.
Okay.
I saw some folks out on the sidewalk, and my understanding about 200 to 500 letters were delivered to neighbors and mailboxes in the surrounding 2 or 3 block area advertising the assembly today, which probably was derailed in most people's minds because it was advertised in the building predicted, so things are all a little bit up in the air. But and flyers were stapled all over, I think, too, because I've seen some on posts and stuff. was, according to the press release and the welcome packet and those individual handbills given to neighbors, was basically like come and participate in an open decision-making process and talk about what the space could be instead of route. So that's one more thing that happened in a bit of engagement. Which it's also maybe relevant to people's concerns about, well, we weren't told that this was going to happen. Well, okay, it was an illegal building, but common sense back in there. But I think that process of beginning to engage the neighborhood with those handbills was already going on a pretty large scale. I don't know how many were given out. I asked a couple of people who were giving them out. I think it was somewhere between 200 and 500 available and half supply.
He's talking about flyers being passed out about 200 to 400.
Someone living right in the middle of Carrboro that I've gotten texts and emails all day from people asking about this meeting and seeing more than they're not being building. People just want to come out in the weather. So in the future, we should arrange for better weather.
I'll look into that for you. Yeah, I'll get on right on that. I got connections.
There was also a live stream and a website set up for the action, and that live stream all day long. Actually, I had friends who used to live in Chapel Hill and Carrboro who live in like up north now in Texas. Like, action's great. They just watched all day like
The radio one?
No, it was video live stream.
This one?
Yeah, it was probably
Was it me?
There's one on a website that was, well, I don't know.
Twinkle!
As a process suggestion, we're talking about our how we felt about things. I suggest we break into smaller groups for 10 minutes or so. Have a less filtered chance to vent, and then have a more concise report after that. Save the time.
Alright, so can I get a temperature check on breaking out into small groups to discuss how we felt about yesterday? Any blocks on that? Alright, so let's do that. Let's get into a few groups, perhaps people that you don't normally discuss with, and we will time check in 10 minutes to see if we need more time. If not, we will reconvene in this here circle. Break.
Break. So they're going to break out into some groups and talk about how they feel about the situation. I'm going to stay back and let them have their space to talk about this. Does anybody have any questions about what's going on? I know you probably can't hear much because people aren't really speaking loudly, so I know it's hard to hear. Looks like there's about 4 groups, and police officers still over there in the driveway. Still some press left. They're filming, taking notes. There's lots of video archived from yesterday's events, so if you are not sure what this meeting is about, if you go to the video archives on my Ustream page, which is Occupy CH, you can actually see the videos of yesterday. There's about 4 of them, and they're in, if you just go, I think it'll start playing from the beginning. So you've got the whole, I guess it's 4.5 hours of what happened instead of just a little snippet that the media gives you, and probably misinformation that the mainstream media will give. You know how they like that 30-second soundbite. And yesterday's events were a lot more than a 30-second soundbite, so. They've made some chili here. Offered some free chili. Looks really yummy. And if you want, we can take a look at the building here. So, this is the building. And it already had the no CVS spray painted on the front. And they had a table full of flyers and all sorts of stuff inside. And they had built benches and they were continuing to build benches inside. They had food set up in there. For a while they were playing drums outside. It's very lively. I actually did go in the building to film some of it, and so you can see what was going on inside the building. The mayor of Carrboro was in there for a very long time and said he wouldn't leave until they did. So there's a lot of conversation with the mayor inside that building between him and the protesters. Some of it was antagonistic and some of it wasn't. Some people just don't like politicians, no matter who they are or how good of a job they do. Some people just don't like politicians or police. Those aren't my views exactly, but everyone has the right to feel the way they do. So they're going to break up into these groups for 10 minutes, and then they're going to come back into a circle, and one person from each group will say collectively how each group felt. News people are still hanging around. The police station is right across the street over there. There's Weaver Street Market. Here's a cute little doggy.
Hello.
Hi.
Pardon me, pardon me.
It is really cold out here. I'm wondering how cold it is actually. Anybody want to look up the weather for me? Oh my god, it's cold. Hey, Lila, can I have my cigarettes?
No, I mean,
Hi. Lana, do you have a timekeeper? Okay. Okay.
3 minutes.
Do you have a lighter?
There is no point.
Do you have a lighter? I can't find mine.
The hell? I'm a big NASCAR fan, if you didn't know.
Do you collect them? NASCAR lighters?
No, that's my only one.
Okay. We have a town of Carrboro councilwoman.
Oh, is she really? She works on campus for a lot. Good enough. Hello, beautiful guy.
Aww. Cute doggies. Just a couple more minutes and then they're gonna break out of their groups.
Hello, baby.
That's totally being Ustreamed right now.
Oh, not my puppy face.
Your puppy face.
More interested in those.
Do you have anything you would like to say to my viewers?
So I'm glad you're here. I wish I could do it from prior to this meeting. I don't know really what that would be, but I like being center of attention.
Well, you do it very well. That whole center of attention thing. You handle it well.
1 minute!
It's too cold. Look at my hands. They're like red. Look how red my hands are. They're so red. Putting back my glove on. Oh my god. Okay. They should be pretty much done. And if
Is everybody ready to regroup? Do we need 3 more minutes? This group's good.
break! Yeah, help yourself. That's what it's there for.
That'd be lovely. Alright, so now let's move into report backs from each of the breakout discussion groups to hear a little summary of what you all talked about. So if I could get a volunteer from each group to let us know.
I'll go first.
Great, thanks Evan.
So we talked about like pros and cons of like what came out of this document. And I think the main con is that we don't actually still have the building.
Con is we don't have the building.
But I think that's kind of obvious too. The other con that we kind of stuck on. Right check, sorry. The other con that we brought up was the
Closing the circle.
the discourse. Yes, Benson. The other comment we talked about was the press coverage was as to be expected. There was lukewarm stories in favor, and a lot of blog postings under the stories that at least I read that were against this occupation. Yeah, those are the two cons. The pros that we saw were something happening, like something happened, which is a lot better than nothing happening. Also, like, just like this furthering the resistance culture that we have in this community, and being something that anybody can positively look towards and be like, well, it's been done, what can we do next? What's the third thing?
Catalyst for
Oh
And then,
my
like,
God.
This community that we have right now.
You're being upstaged by a puppy.
The catalyst for that community coming together. So that was another definite thing.
Great, thank you. Does somebody from the group that was over there like to share what you all talked about?
We had a lot of excitement over the fact that it happened. Some disappointment over the fact that it was over so soon. Concerns expressed about the fact that the mayor may come out of this looking like a reasonable person, or as though somebody better than Kleinschmidt, when ultimately he achieves the same things through different means, and we still have all the same inequalities in our community that he's overseeing. There was some discussion over the presence of nomadic occupy and the fact that some people there felt that they weren't thrilled to have this happen without warning, but at the same time the understanding that there really couldn't be warning because we live in a society that has these inequalities and enforces them, and it's continuing to enforce them. So, spreading that is not really feasible. What else? There was people felt the need to show up when this happened because they saw that there had been police action at the last building occupation as a result of there being smaller numbers at that point, and wanted to lend their support in whatever capacity just to add their voice. And so I think in that sense, it really was, at least for our community of resistance, a positive and powerful experience.
I like that name. Community of Resistance.
Great, thank you. Next group. I believe there were 4 in total, so that makes 2 more.
You want to go? Okay. In our group, we talked about the actual CVS, like the problem that a lot of people have with the CVS development that's planned here. We explained the development to those of us that didn't understand it fully.
I'm old and can't hear you. I'm so
Okay,
sorry.
we talked about the planned CVS development and explained it to those of our group that didn't understand it. Some of us expressed dissatisfaction that there was no after eviction or after
That name, Community of Resistance, would be a great name
some of us also
to
expressed
bring the groups together. Right?
some
Love
discomfort
that.
at perhaps being kind of drawn into this action without fully being aware of what was going on previous to their involvement.
Great, thank you. Somebody from the group that was over here?
I think the general consensus with our group was being associated with the direct action community may not be in our best interest just due to the public image of that sort of behavior. I think one of the positive things that we could do with Nick's idea was come here and set up a small community garden, just go ahead and do it and maintain it to the best of our ability. I think that would be a really positive thing for the community.
I think, well, there are a couple other, I feel like we had a sort of a spectrum of, I think
Will you speak up?
Mic check.
Yeah. I feel like, just to add to that, I think a couple of us had a few other, sets of sensibilities about it. I feel like some of us expressed, there were a couple concerns that I heard. That one was that the lack of communication and coordination between the other groups, and and one was what else?
We just started getting into discussions and
Yeah,
you're
we
in
did.
a position. It's really hard to report back. But I think,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I just think that there were support for this issue and the private property, but there's also a lot of questions about tactics and about what is the most effective way even of us analyzing who is in charge or responsible for the inequalities and the fact that this exchange happened. Just a lot of questions about that, but generally sad that we're not in the building, and that it didn't last longer.
And there was a concern. You had a concern about vilifying police.
I was just wondering if the antagonistic relationship with the police is more detrimental than it is beneficial, and kind of vilifying them when, I mean, I think in our group, I've heard people voice when they know that they're taking an illegal action, they know the enforcement of it and the repercussions of that. So it's to be expected. I don't know if it's in the best interest if you're trying to get community support, to make them out to be such as the bad guys, that you know that they have to follow that role, unfortunately.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I was going to open up the floor to any responses to any of the report facts. So, Brian.
The first thing I would say is that nobody has to do anything. People do what they want to, what they believe in. Nobody has to, do their job. You do what you believe is morally right. I expect that of everyone because I expect that of everyone who is an adult. I expect people to take responsibility for their actions and for the kind of world they create. I humbly and imperfectly aspire to create a world in which people have more equal access to resources, to the ability to fulfill their potential in the ways that everybody sees fit. I'm personally not happy with the idea that Mayor Chilton is any different than any other official who presides over an unjust and unequal system, basically. I mean, if he makes us like him while enforcing the inequalities of our society, then we are even worse off than people under Pinochet in Chile who knew that they were being ruled by a dictator.
Any other comments in response to any of the report facts?
I mean, there's a really awesome practice in Occupy Wall Street called the Occupy Think Tank, and I feel like one of the questions here is about the nature of power and how it plays out in our community. Because I am not clear that we are identifying necessarily the targets. I mean, I agree with us, but everyone's enforcing this system. Everyone that pays taxes, everyone that, what I mean, we're all participating, and maybe some of us are really good at objecting, So I feel like we need to talk and maybe lay out, because Mark Chilton, I mean, I do think it makes a big difference that he didn't allow people with semi-automatic weapons to come into a building. I understand that in the outcome is the same, and that's fine. But I also don't see him as presiding over Carrboro. He's not a king, and I don't know, I feel like that language sort of obfuscates some of the deeper and more entrenched logics in our society that make it impossible for a community to contest selling a private property to CVS. And I feel like if we get fixated on trying to get mad at Mark Chilton, and we're not going to get at the issue of private property and how private property trumps every other thing in our society, and that no one even questions it.
Maria, and then Neil.
While I agree that we need to be getting at the private property issue and the profit issue and how it trumps human needs and the needs of the ecosystem, I'm coming more and more to a view that as much as I may or may not like Mark personally or anyone personally, that this whole we must uphold the law because we've taken a vow to uphold the law, there are some really serious ethical quandaries there, and I think we have to keep pointing at that, because saying, I'm in favor of the environment, or I'd really like homeless people to be able to sleep in buildings, but I'm going to uphold laws against that. I think we have to keep challenging that perspective as unjust and really questionably ethical. And that has nothing to do with whether I like someone or don't like someone. It's just, it's not working.
Neil.
I'd like to express agreement with Nahal that the way that power is dispersed and enacted in our society is complex and both positive as well as negative, and we can get into all that shit, and I think it's right, but I also think that building on that analysis, as somebody who's lived here for a while, the way that power is enacted in this town is somewhat unique in that it not just exist side by side, but actually it's completely dependent upon and integrated within a specifically liberal apparatus. And what that means is that in some ways Mark Chilton's meaningless as he's just a bureaucrat. But he's also a symbol of a specific kind of liberal bureaucracy, which is a unique way that power is enforced in this town violently. And I actually would disagree about the assault rifle thing. I actually think this eviction was worse. And the reason for that is I think we came out powerful after the last one. I think they actually made a mistake the last time, mistaken. And then I think people understand why that is. All the marches, everything that happened afterwards, the public backlash, the momentum we built off of. This was a better violent eviction than that one. It was smarter. And that does, the fact that I didn't have a gun pointed at me, even though they were carrying it, right? This time, as opposed to last time, it's great. I hate having guns pointed at me, but the issue is like this was in some ways this was actually worse for us because it was smarter on their part. Mark Chilton was doing a better job of being a politician, which means a better job of being an enemy of freedom as far as I'm concerned. Dan Feinstein was. And so I think a more nuanced understanding of power also has to understand that power isn't just the barrel of a gun. It's the narrative and politics and dialogue. And so actually contesting figures like Chilton is really important because he's such a figurehead of liberal crap in this town. And that's a really specific way that power is enacted in Carrboro Chapel Hill. If you're in a different city, it'd probably be pretty different. So I agree, like it's stupid to focus on one person, but there is something to the dynamic going on that's about confronting the way that liberalism enacts this still uphold the law.
Evan, and then Nick, and then David.
Yeah. The other side of that coin, which is maybe the smaller side, is that no one got arrested. And that means, in a very real, practical way, I don't want to not do something simply because it means I'm going to get arrested. But there's legal baggage, there's financial baggage with that. So I think that there's...
Nick?
One of the things that I think was most distinctive about how this occupation unfolded, particularly in the arguments that happened afterwards outside from the media, is the way that it really laid bare the two Carrboros that exist in Carrboro. The Carrboro that shops at Weaver Street and has tenure at UNC or might have it soon, and bikes because it's fun and eco-friendly, even though they have a car, and all these things. And then the Carrboro who cleans up after those people, the Carrboro who serves coffee to those people and delivers food and flowers to those people and builds stuff for those people and has sex with those people when they are unhappy in their marriages. And I'm being fucking real. And so the first Carrboro is the Carrboro that's invested in the town government, in civil dialogue, in talking things out. And the second Carrboro is diverse and can't be summed up or represented easily, but in many cases doesn't give a fuck and is just trying to get by. And it's hard for me to think about how to respond to these questions of like, how do we move forward together as a community? What could we have done better? How could we have done more outreach and whatnot? When it's like, we're living different lives. This is a class society in which we have conflicting interests that are kind of non-negotiable for us. So I guess like it was refreshing in a certain way for me to see that just laid bare. Like let's just take the gloves off and be honest, like this is what's going on here in Carrboro. And that doesn't leave me very hopeful about the prospects of civil resolution, but if it took a handful of folks in the second Carrboro to really make the point that the first Carrboro needs to stand up in the channels that they see as important to make sure that this thing doesn't get turned into a CVS, then that's something. It's a place to start. But it doesn't resolve any of the underlying antagonisms, which, we'll have to keep not just talking about, but changing concretely.
Gary?
I know we're
trying to move past the vilifying of Mark Schultz, but I need to make one more point about why what he did was wrong and dumb. And that is that he came into the building, and from what I heard reported back from inside, said that he was not occupying with us, but he was occupying our occupation. With the implication that because he's the mayor, he's above the law. That his body being in that space legally was different than our bodies being in that space legally. Which, fuck that.
Put that in the minutes.
Yes. Capital S.
Which, fuck that. Yes, Violet.
I think that if you were in the building and you saw the mayor's behavior from the time you went in to the time we all got kicked out, it was very revealing about the type of person he is and who's what in the thing. Because when he finally, it's almost like, okay, I've let y'all play long enough, it's time to go. And that was it. It was very condescending. It was very stern. It was very chilling to see that come from somebody that, walked outside to the great cheers of, oh, you just did a great job and all that. That's not the person I saw.
And the chill wasn't just vegan ice cream.
Yeah.
A quote spit at me on the inside from the mayor. I enjoy fucking with you too.
Yes.
Also quoted
He did. He did. He did. He did. I've got it on Ustream, yeah.
on the same just press quotes. It quoted in WRAL in the text after somebody is complaining about how hard it is to make ends meet, and that part gets quoted about wage, like how much wages pay in town. There's a quote from that, and then the next quote is "You're full of crap." Mark Schultz. Awesome.
I'd like us to hear that. I enjoy fucking with you too, in the light of the embodied class differences that Nick described. I want to say maybe when we finish talking about Chilton though, I'm with McCall. I don't want to make this about Mark. I've never really hung out with him. He may indeed be a good person. And for me, whether he's a good person or not is totally beside the point. The point is that even if he was Mother Teresa, even if he was the best person ever, that the structures that he's working within themselves are unable to resolve the problems that we face. And if we're going to get past that impasse, I'd like us to be talking about what we can do to get beyond those obstacles. That's what's incumbent upon us if we have this critique.
Becca?
I think I'm on the other side of this. I think he did a really good job. Nobody got arrested. Nobody had a gun pointed in their face. He didn't call the CERT team from Chapel Hill, which is what they would have done if they needed help. Normally they have this treaty between towns where they call the CERT team for help. He decided not to do that. He sat in there with them to assess the situation himself instead of sending the police in. And he took care of it himself. And I sort of think, I'm really on the other side. I think he did a good job. Nobody got arrested. Nobody got hurt. And just because, we didn't get guns in our faces, which makes us get more publicity or, more marches, doesn't mean it's a bad thing. So, I'm on the other side.
Didn't you have your hand up first, sir?
Yeah, I was going to say a joke, but it's
okay.
No, I understand that, but he was in there, and instead of just sending the police in to do the job, and the police can be dickheads and go in and fuck with people and bully them, he went in there and took care of it himself.
I interpreted what happened as bullying. It's not bullying on his side. It was a different kind of bullying. It was subtler. It looks nicer, but
yeah.
I just interpreted it as gentle.
Okay.
So I hear what you're saying, but I think that's what he was talking about was just that it's a more psychological, strategic
right.
way, and political move as opposed to coming. There was truly no inherent real danger, and he probably knew this. It was a risk that he took to
Right.
I mean, he knew based on history that they were probably unarmed, that they were probably, that it was a similar situation that was going on with the Yates
Uh-huh.
situation. And so he took a risk that it wasn't going to become violent, and he didn't make it violent. It was a strategic move that is actually far more advanced, and it's brilliant from his.
So in a perfect world, what would we have wanted him to do?
So now Maria's
No, seriously. So just have the police take care of it?
Maria's on stack.
Okay.
Okay. So, in a perfect world, okay, I know Mark. He was my real estate agent when I sold my house. He was one of the first people in town that knew I was getting divorced. He came up to me and said, "Let's just talk." Hello.
Right.
I said, "You can decide to assess the situation.
Right, I was there, yeah.
As long as you want. You can go back to your office and say, we have to assess this, we have to research this, people." He could have let us stay for months. He could have let us stay 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
It actually really makes me angry that I have to even say, let us or allow us. I'm kind of done with that right now.
Right.
But aside from that, the spin of this, being on Facebook today, after Yates, there was a lot of debate among my peer group, mid-30s to mid-40s people who are mostly struggling financially in varying different ways, from I don't eat on the days my ex-husband has my kids to we really don't know if we're going to be staying in our house another year. There was a lot of debate about Yates and police and all of that. Today, what I've seen is, this was a successful act of civil disobedience. They caused a ruckus for 4 hours, and the mayor said, no one was arrested, no one was injured, everyone's clicking, 40 people clicking like.
Mm-hmm.
No one gets the simple thing that this was not an act of civil disobedience to cause a ruckus for 4 hours to draw attention to a cause. This was an actual attempt to reclaim the physical space for the community. So something that we've got to work on as a group moving forward is moving from we're causing civil disobedience to draw attention to a cause to we are trying to productively, actively, physically create something different in embodied space.
Right.
So we have to move that forward.
Yeah. I agree totally with what you're saying. I'm just saying I don't see any other mayor in any other city handling it that way. All the other mayors have sent in police with their guns drawn, and I hate to see that happen. I mean, if that happened here, I would lose it. And so just the fact that he prevented that from happening.
That's that you're living under the threat of that happening, and you're relying on one man to prevent it from happening. Think about that a little bit harder.
All right, let's just...
Okay.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I don't know how to... I'm struggling to figure out how we can have a conversation, productive conversation. I love hearing the analysis, and I'm learning a lot, which I also want to say that as much as we can, dismiss the acts of thought and disruption, I think they're really useful given how entrenched the current system is, and so I don't want to dismiss that as an actual productive thing that happened here. But I do have a question, honest question, and I think it was brought up pretty starkly by Nick, and there's been a we used a lot. And I'm wondering if we really have this to Carrboro, and I don't know where Nick places me, seriously, and I think that's a really interesting question, and I'm not taking it personally. I'm seriously asking who the we is that we think we are doing this together, because it's a question, right? Because we have, there are different ways of dividing, of articulating that, and I think that one of the things that we would go about all of these things quite differently depending on who the we is, and we talked a little bit about the difficulty of the we and the other occupied, the GA at Peace and Justice Cause, and I think it's a real question, and it's one that if we're going to be real and we're going to be honest with one another, we have to kind of ask. And I'm not saying we're going to come to the answer right now, and I don't know if that's the question we want to ask, but I did want to put it out there because I think that is being assumed a little bit, and it's for me it's a question. I actually don't know what to say. I also think the question of civil disobedience and like the level of symbolism versus real is an interesting like continuum, right? Because symbolism is a real occupation, especially the way that our symbolic space in the culture of capitalism is completely, do you know what I mean? It is one meaning and one tone. So I think, like, I agree with you that we are, like, again, I don't even know who that is, but that the physical embodiment and doing things is actually real, but symbolically shifting what people imagine is possible is real too.
I want to let the conversation
Well, I just wanted to say, the initial reason why this assembly was called was to talk about what to do with this building, and these conversations are important, but I just want to name that I feel the sadness that we don't feel like we can have that conversation anymore, and there's a cop sitting there with a gun who will stop us if we try to go inside and have that conversation.
And a dog.
And a dog. So, we should keep talking about the stuff we've been talking about the mayor, about how power works, about who we are as a we, and how to move forward with more both creative and concrete actions. But also maybe let's try and not let the idea die that some we that's not CVS and not just the Board of Aldermen or whatever, not that I don't love him, could determine what happens with this building and this property and this space.
Okay, no. Did you say your name?
Johannan. This goes back, someone posed a question earlier and then there was a lot of discussion, but I want to make the point that the threat of violence is no different than an act of violence. The threat of arrest is no different than the act of arrest. It is no more ethical to do one than the other. And the fact that the mayor was here, that he came inside the building and saw what was going on, there were obviously no weapons, no one was violent, yet he saw that it posed a threat. I think that's important to recognize. Also, historically, the way that laws are changed and the way that laws are enforced is because people choose to not follow laws that are unethical. And maybe that will happen slowly over time. We push a little bit. Maybe it happens differently. But this struggle is not something new. And also I think it's important to look back in just the last 50 years and see how different the world is today than it was then, and how different could it be 50 years from now if we continue to do what we're doing.
Something I'm a little concerned about this discussion. I've heard a lot of people say that the cops coming in with a non-threat, and he just touched on this. If there's a cop, there are guns. There is violence about to happen. If a police officer shows up, he's armed, and he will draw down on you no matter what. So if there is police action in any instance, we are in danger. We have to be able to defend ourselves and be prepared for any action that they are willing to go forward with. It's a dangerous balance to break into private property and
Sunday
expect the police
afternoon,
to
right?
deal with it. I mean, whether we believe in the laws or not, we're breaking the law, and they will take action. Either we get more extreme or we give up entirely. I know that a lot of people here are opposed to direct action and are opposed to weaponry and all that sort of thing, but that's something that needs to be considered in our community about whether we are able and willing to defend ourselves against the direct threat of our laws and our government.
So, can we talk about what this place can be?
How about we close back on on whatever we're talking about now, and then we can reopen it onto that topic.
Any last
You know, I have to make myself present.
Mic check.
I just want to make sure, I hold this position on being on town government, and I don't want to be quiet. I want to make sure people hear me too. And I'm sorry to be in that position. I recognize all the violence that backs up. Even if the police walk in without guns, they still have their walkie-talkies. And even if you don't get a gun put to your head, you can get thrown into jail, or you can get a mark on your record. I don't know if it's something for me to apologize for or what. I do remember our conversations in the application of laws in Chapel Hill, and how there's a double standard for when and how things get enforced. And I find it interesting that this is a case where we could have. There's criticism of how it's selective and how it gets enforced in Chapel Hill, but there was an opportunity here to be selective in enforcement too. It is a state law that we have to abide by, but there's also discretion that we have as a town government in when and how to apply that. Yesterday was an example of the distinction between how Chapel Hill could apply it and how we apply it. What we missed an opportunity on is the time frame in which we decided and had this, bureaucracies could work for people too. So, unfortunately, I don't feel that I'm a member with enough people on the board, or even with enough people in this town to have such an approach have traction. So, I recognize the point made that there are two Carrboros, and it's important to recognize those two and be clear about it. And I appreciate everyone bringing to light all these things that haven't been thought about, and I think it's a valuable thing for us to engage with, and I look forward to being on the right side, however and whenever I can. Just wanted to share that.
All right, so before we close stack, Diane has something to say.
Hi, sorry I was late. I was at the other GA. I'm Diane, and I just want to quote Donna Haraway really fast. She said, "One is not enough, but two is too many." And there are definitely moments in time when sort of figuring out who exactly is the enemy can be really important and powerful, idea-wise and action-wise. But then the fact that there are many sort of ways to do political work is, I think, important to think about. I think we spent time at the NAACP meeting yesterday as members of Occupy, and you might not know, but they're trying to focus all of the sort of negative energy about the AIDS rate on the only 2 African American cops. So not to humanize people who are part of the oppressive state apparatus, but also to acknowledge that these are also vulnerabilities, and that's also something for us to be keeping in mind. So.
Great. All right. So now we're going to close stack on that conversation and move on to discussing which is the intention of this GA as to what is to be done with this space. And I think Nick's bringing that out. As facilitator, I was a little confused as to what type of meeting I was facilitating, but now I got it. Thanks. And I'm only 25 minutes late for work. All right. So I see 2 options. One, we can just open into a discussion, or we can break out again, so that way we can get some ideas floating around. So I guess I'll take a temperature check on breaking out into groups. Yeah, sure. We can do 7 minutes, 5 minutes, 5. We'll do 5. All right. See ya on 5.
Different groups?
Whatever.
I would love to be.